Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. Now in today's video we're going to be doing another rate it or hate it video, and we're going to be looking this time at the Skorpekh destroyers from our Necron Codex. So if you don't know the premise of rate it or hate it, I simply go through the data card, go through my personal tactics, give you my general feel to how I use them and what to do with them basically, and end of the video I decide whether I rate them or I hate them. There is no middle ground. It's either one or the other. I've got to make a decision. If you want to play along in the comments, you can do so as well. But let's get into today's video, the Skorpekh destroyers. Right, data card wise, what have we got here? We've got a 50mm base, nice. Then it's slightly bigger than the standard infantry. 3 models is 100 points, 6 models is 200 points. It's a nice and easily rounded up number, and we'll see if that's too expensive or whatnot as we go through this data card. So they're moving quite quickly with 8 inches of movement. Toughness is 6, which is actually pretty good. 3+ is the armor save, no invulnerable save, 3 wounds apiece, leadership 7, and the OC is 2. Now being toughness 6, I would sort of expect maybe the wounds characteristic to have gone up. It hasn't, but maybe I thought it could have. Toughness 6 is quite a tough, resilient model. So that's the statistics. The toughness of course stands out to me there. Let's move into the melee weapons. In fact, before we do the melee weapons, let's talk about the war gear, because that kind of makes a little bit more sense. So for every 3 models in the unit, you can take a plasma sight. So if you've got 1 unit of 3, 1 plasma sight. If you've got a unit of 6, 2 plasma sights. And a plasma sight is like a once per battle item per plasma sight, and you unlock it in a single fight phase, so not a turn, not a battle round, a single fight phase, and you will unlock devastating wounds on your weapons for that particular phase. So now let's get into those actual melee weapons. So now we've got the Skorpekh Hyperphase weapons. So in 9th edition we had 2 different weapons. I can't remember the name of them now. Was it the Reap Blades was one of them? Anyway, they've merged them into one. Similar as the Index, but I'm going to go through this now. So they've got 4 attacks per model. So a max unit of 6 of them is going to have 24 attacks. Hitting on 3s, strength is 7, minus 2 AP, 2 damage. The strength being 7, some people will class that as really good, some people will say that's not very good. I'm in the camp to suggest that it's not very good, because monsters and vehicles in 10th edition have gone up in terms of their toughness. They used to be around the toughness 7, toughness 8 kind of vibes, but now they're sort of toughness 10, toughness 11. But the weapon strength also didn't match anymore. It doesn't match, it didn't go up alongside it. Which means it's only really going to be going for the infantry, elite infantry, mounted units, beast units, those kind of models. Which is okay, I suppose. There's nothing wrong with that, especially when you've now only got 2 damage. We used to have 3 damage in 9th edition. But the problem I've got is if you're going up against those models, most of them are toughness 4, toughness 5. A few of them will be toughness 6, and that will obviously benefit us. We'll be wounded on 3s. But if you're going up against a bog standard Space Marine that's toughness 4, it doesn't matter whether you're strength 7 or strength 5. It's going to have the same effects. You're wounded on a 3+. So I feel like we may be paying a little bit of a premium for that weapon because it goes right up to strength 7. AP minus 2 is nice, and damage 2 virtually means, yeah, that is the target now. Any more than that, it's not doing enough. So infantry-ish, that kind of weapon. Right, let's move into the ability side. Reanimation protocols, yep, cool. Whirling Onslaught, which used to be a stratagem in 9th edition. Now it is an ability. So each time a model in the unit makes a melee attack, you reroll your hit rolls of a 1. And if you made a charge move this turn, you get to reroll all the hit rolls instead. Feels very Canoptic Court, doesn't it? Although this is a destroy unit, and this happens on the charge. I think that could have been what the Annihilation Legion actually had, you know. That sounds really cool. The Annihilation just had reroll your hit rolls on the charge, and always reroll hit rolls of a 1 with the United in Destruction or you know, that kind of ability. That would have been kind of cool. It's not what it is, but at least the Skorpekh destroyers actually have it. So you're hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, or hitting on 3s, rerolling everything on the charge. Nice. And apply devastating wounds. So that is the data card. Other than the keywords, which is only really infantry that's worthy of a mention there. So let's move into my tactics. So first I want to discuss the detachment that I would use when playing the Skorpekh destroyers. Now, before picking my selection, I want to give a little shout out to the Annihilation Legion as well as the Awakened Dynasty. I might go into a bit of detail in those in a moment, but the one that I would use is the Hypercrypt Legion. I know the Destroyers, you're probably thinking, no, they need to go in the Annihilation Legion, the Destroyer units, but the Annihilation Legion is kind of subpar. It's not that great, there's not that many units that interact with it, and everybody kind of knows your game plan. Skorpekh Destroyers, Skorpekh Lord, charge, that's it, that's really what it is. So why would I go with the Hypercrypt Legion then? Well, within this detachment you've got the Necrons Monolith, and the Monolith is what, 350 points. You're going to be using the Eternity Gate, and you can also use the Dimensional Corridor stratagem, which allows them to come out of the Eternity Gate and then still make a charge, which is cool. I mean, they can just come out the Eternity Gate naturally, but they won't be able to charge, so you kind of need the charge. That charge move will be easy because there's no 9-inch restriction or anything like that. They just come out wholly within 6, and if you're 2 inches away from any model, cool. 2-inch charge, nice and easy. They can also be given the Deep Strike ability with one of the enhancements if you're using a Skorpekh Lord, for example, which is the Austrioclave Fulcrum. But I think I'd save it for the more slower units, to be honest with you, but you got the option there of putting it on that unit. So with the hyperphasing, because that's their detachment role, you can be pulling them off the battlefield, whether it's at the end of your opponent's turn, or you can actually hyperphase them as soon as you lose a model because you've got the hyperphasic recall stratagem. It will keep them safe for now. But yeah, once they're popping out of that monolith, with the Skorpekh Lord, which we kind of haven't discussed enough, he provides lethal hits. So you're going to be popping out with lethal hits as well as devastating wounds from the plasma sites, which is pretty sweet. I mean, those two abilities or weapon keywords, they do clash slightly, but it doesn't hurt to have both of them. Lethal hits, of course, means any critical hit rolls you don't need to roll to wound for, but you need to roll to wound to get the devastating wounds. But having both of them does add and add, so I think it's still good, it's just a slight semi-clash. Now I want to go back to those two detachments that I mentioned briefly, which was one of them was the Annihilation Legion, the other one was the Awakened Dynasty. With the Annihilation Legion, you've got another mode of getting into engagement range because you can have a rerollable charge because of the detachment rule. You can potentially get a +1 to that charge roll as well if the unit that's being charged is below half strength. There's enhancement options again with that Skorpekh Lord if he's in there, which he should be really, which is the Soulless Reaper. I think that's the pick of the bunch there, which it stops your opponents from falling back. I think it's on a 3+, they can't fall back, which is good because it adds another fight phase in your opponent's turn, which gives you another chance to slap on them, use your hyperphasic weapons, and then maybe you actually destroy them in your opponent's turn, which gives them freedom to move 8 inches and do another charge move, which is again re-rollable, maybe a +1 to that charge. There's another stratagem in there, Pitiless Hunters, which allows you to gain some extra movement with the pile-ins and consolidations. And I'd also look at the Insanity's Ire, which basically gives you a free 8-inch movement towards the nearest enemy models if you lost a model. So you lose one single model, nearest enemy unit, you can just move towards them 8 inches. It just buys you extra movement. It could be for objectives, it could be just to get in engagement range or get closer to engagement range for your next turn. Now the Awakened Dynasty, I want to also briefly touch upon that because that's another one that you could use. Again, the Skorpekh Lord will be within the Skorpekh Destroyer unit, so that's going to give you command protocols, which is a +1 to your hit roll. If you're hitting on 2s and with Whirling Onslaught, you're re-rolling your hit rolls, or well, you're normally re-rolling 1s anyway, but you could be re-rolling all the hit rolls, which is the same thing when you're hitting on 2s, isn't it really? You could be adding the Veil of Darkness relic on that Skorpekh Lord, and that will get you just over 9 inches away, so you will have a 9-inch charge. And then there's the protocol of Hungry Void to add +1 to the strength and AP, which is actually quite useful in this kind of unit because it puts you to strength 8. Strength 8 going up against toughness 4 means you're wounded on 2s, and also strength 8 just about manages to scrape the light vehicles, although we are still damage 2. We also can't forget the survivability of the Skorpekh Lord as well. I know this isn't the Skorpekh Lord's rate it or hate it video, but with the protocol of Eternal Revenant, if he does die, he can get back up again, which means you've still got command protocols active for your unit. Now in general, if you're talking about Skorpekh Destroyers, you always take the Skorpekh Lord, I think. If you're going to take the Skorpekh Destroyers, you do take the Skorpekh Lord, because that's going to have lethal hits. You've got a combined total of 28 to 32 attacks, depending on what weapon you're using with the Skorpekh Lord. You're re-rolling your hit rolls. You've got 2 plasma sites in a full unit. for devastating wounds on top of that. I think they work in pretty much most of the detachments that we've got at present. The 3 that we've spoke about today, definitely. But as I mentioned earlier, Strength 7 doesn't quite hit it going up against certain things. It does it against the infantry, great, it does that, but I do feel like we're paying a premium for that job. Maybe they could have also been Strength 8, that might have just been a little bit more helpful, maybe, but yeah, they're not. And the other thing that's letting them down is the fact that we've got other units that we can select from. So we're going to move into the comparisons. So in terms of melee in the Codex, we've got a few options. First of all, we've got Lich Guard. Lich Guard, admittedly, we don't really use the war size with Lich Guard, we're normally with the swords and shields. So they're only actually Strength 6, not Strength 7. And they're only within 5 inches. But they do have the invulnerable save, so they've got a bit of durability there. They are cheaper, but I feel like they've got a different role. The Skorpekh Destroyers are there to attack. The Lich Guard with the swords and shields are there to bunker down on an objective and just hold ground with the OC, scoring primaries and secondaries. And so personally, I actually think in terms of offense, the Skorpekh Destroyers are better than the Lich Guard with the sword and shields. War size are a different thing though. I think the war size are probably better at it, but then you're losing the durability, so it's quite a hard comparison really. So yeah, the war size are probably better there. We've then got Canoptic Wraiths. Canoptic Wraiths, they're probably our best unit right now, to be honest with you. They're quick, they're durable. Toughness 6, which is the same as the Skorpekh Destroyers. They've got 2 damage weapons, same as the Skorpekh Destroyers as well. They've also got the range weapons with the particle casters or the trans-dimensional beamers. Only 10 points more for 3, so if you get a full unit, it's only 20 points more for all that stuff. And of course, the Technomancer can also go in the unit to provide the Feel No Pain save, although they're not now having a Skorpekh Lord with lethal hits. And the third comparison I wanted to make today is the C'tans. I suppose that's a grouped comparison. A full unit of Destroyers with a Lord is 300 points. Now at the time of filming this, you can get any of the C'tans for that. Even if they do go up in points, it's going to be thereabouts. I mean, even the Nightbringer at this moment is 255 points. And he will cleave through absolutely everything and anything and will be an absolute pain in the butt to get rid of. So I would definitely be taking the C'tan over the Skorpekh Destroyers in pretty much every situation, even if the points does go up with the C'tan. So we're at that part of the video where I've got to rate or hate the Skorpekh Destroyers. I do like the Skorpekh Destroyers. I think they do have a lot of potential. It's just that their main detachment realistically is the Annihilation Legion, which nobody really plays unless you're playing friendly. We do have other options. The Wraiths are an obvious one, but they're kind of taking the spot of everyone, to be honest with you. We've got the Lich Guard. There are others that I've not mentioned in this video, maybe Canoptic Spiders, perhaps, Triumph Praetorians and so on. But I just feel like we're paying a premium for that Strength 7, and that Strength 7 isn't very versatile against other different opponents or opponents' units. Whereas the C'tan, for example, normally have 2 profiles, or even the 1 profile is like damage 3, depending on what C'tan you've got. And at least the Lich Guard with the sword and shields have some durability. And Strength 6 against certain units are still wounded on 3s, just like these hyperphase weapons with the Skorpekh Destroyers. So for today, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this one a hate. Yeah, it feels bad, but I just don't think they're in the right place right now. Until the Annihilation Legion gets fixed, or it's not going to get fixed, but until they change that detachment, give them rerolls to the hit rolls on the charge or something, until they do that, it's not going to be that great. So therefore, I have to currently hate them.